Hello, friends, a very warm welcome. And in this episode, like in the previous one, please go through that so that you will be able to understand कि क्या logic है, क्या ideas हैं that we are taking up. Again, I am reiterating the goal is to take up such important issues and topics which are ever relevant, which are going to help you in making your not only economic concepts more clearer, but you will start learning and enjoying the understanding of economics, which is very important as a layman having understanding of what is happening around. The goal is not just for examination, but the goal is to make sure a person becomes more confident, have more clarity, and it is helping him or her in the problem solving, the complex life that we all live every day. उसमें आपको कैसे वो कहीं ना कहीं मदद करता है directly indirectly. That's what we are going for. So taking up again, very important. The first one is inflation morally wrong? Now this, from the examination perspective, if I say, now this can come up not as an essay, but then there can be a subline theme for essay. There can always be a theme which can make you think whether inflation is morally wrong or not. So this is a very important question from the perspective of ethics, from the perspective of economics in general studies, and otherwise also as a person. It can make you one thing if you really know what inflation is, how it impacts, and from the different people's perspective, from homemakers' perspective, from a businessman's perspective, from a bureaucrat's perspective, from the perspective of a daily wager, whether inflation is morally wrong or not. And let's bring into this another stakeholder is that is of unemployment or employed people. So, like the way it is saying, mob of hungry peasants. So, E.P. Thompson, it is saying that if there is a mob of hungry peasants, like the way we have seen in Bangladesh, like the way we have seen in Sri Lanka, like the way we have seen in Yemen, like the way we have seen in Iraq, and like the way we talk about other African nations, and like the way we talk about what is happening in different parts of the world, even in case of protests by the farmers in India. So, mob of hungry peasants or protests, is it a resistance to capitalism? So 18th century, food riots were there. So Marxist historian have created the term moral economy. So Mansi, would you like to throw light on the aspect? What is your understanding of moral economy is?
So I would say firstly the distribution of income and the wealth. High inequality, that is one of the moral, we can say moral connotation of moral economy. Then safety of the workers, safe working conditions, whether their real wages they are in sync
So
with
that
the
means,
increase in
that
inflation.
means in preamble, when we talk about economic justice, it is our constitution is a morally a moral document with respect to economy. It is having a moral economics perspective. Same is there with the directive principles of state policy, and even would you say GST also? GST also reflects some elements of moral economy.
Right, sir, because GST is an indirect taxation. So as we always say, indirect taxes are regressive in nature. So they
So
bring more
that means as long
amount
as the
of
government of India, yes, very true. Government of India, if it is not going for market economy in an excessive way, if you are not embracing it, then we are following the logic of supply and demand. We are following the logic of distributive justice. We are following the logic of free ration PDS. We are following the logic of subsidy in urea. We are following the logic of providing a kind of a basic income. But would you say like giving a 1000 rupees to each girl who is above 18 years or providing some kind of assistance to the youth of 500,000 or 2000 rupees, is it also part of moral economics?
So true, it can be a part of moral economy, but ultimately it depends the nature of use of that money, whether that is meeting that purpose for which that is being given to the people and the beneficiaries. So in that case, the social norms of the Indian society, they are the major driving or deciding factors. For example,
Okay, we can move forward and like it is saying that in America also people are angry, or in Europe also people are angry, but their anger is something different. So the question arises, why do we dislike inflation? But here I would say, even in that context also, it is with respect to developing countries who have suffered have-nots. That must be taken into context, and not the developed countries, because they had enough comfort, they had enough cushion, and they had enough luxury, and they had enough level of development which is more than sustainable if we take into the concept of our planet Earth. We can move forward further by thinking about that what more takeaways we can have. So Mansi, it is talking about that there is not seeing of trade-off between inflation and unemployment. So I would ask you, what is the trade-off between inflation and unemployment known as?
So we can say one, it can be related to the opportunity cost. And in this case also, if we explain this trade-off, so if there is high inflation, so this is a positive factor for the producers and the manufacturers, because this in a way increases their profits, because they'll be able to sell at higher prices in the market. So they will be employing more. So in with increase in inflation, it will lead to increase in employment. But again, inflation also increases the cost of living.
So you are talking about Phillips curve, the
Right.
relationship between
Hmm.
inflation and employment. So
Right.
the Phillips curve you're talking about and how it is very important. So the like COVID-19 pandemic, real income falling down, India going to recover itself, India going to move forward, India sustaining growth, World Bank and IMF is also talking about the same, India is sustaining a level of growth. India's macroeconomic fundamentals are clear, even RBI is talking about it. So give me one example how RBI is following the idea of moral economics.
Right now, as we are seeing that RBI's hawkish policy stance, which is focusing upon mitigating and bringing down inflation. Specifically, we are using CPI as an indicator to 4% level. So
Mhm.
that continued stance, hawkish stance of the RBI of late is an indicator of that.
So you are saying that we are following any critical element you want to say?
No, so we can just say that as we are seeing that majorly we are suffering because of high food inflation. So how we can integrate the supply side factors into the monetary policy is now the next step, and move towards the producer price index.
And we are working on that. That's what you are saying,
जी,
correct?
हाँ जी sir, right हाँ.
So economics, like as an economist, like we have just spoken from the perspective of a budding officer, or say, for example, a future government official. But as an economist, they are more relaxed about rising prices. So as an economist, how do you say that the view is different from that of a common man, or that of an officer, or that of a government employee, or that for that matter of a politician?
So, difference in terms of talking as an economist, I would say that we are focusing upon the macro picture. We are not just only focusing upon, again, only inflation. So, we are taking into consideration the stability and the performance and the current momentum of the Indian economy's growth. So, from that
So
perspective, our monetary policy is in sync with that, and it is, in a way, it
yeah.
will be encouraging more of that
So you
stability.
agree, you agree that the government plays a very important role in containing or in promoting or in stability of prices. And that is why if the onions are not being exported, then the political party in power will have to pay the price.
Hmm.
So what we can say is that the people at top or the power structure, they always play the important role in the prices, and that is why inflation is linked with the top people, and it has nothing to do with the common man, nothing to do with the daily wager who will have to abide or subside by the way whole thing is working upon. So demand and supply, another idea there. Any theory of economics would you like to apply over here before we move forward?
So, particular theory, so I'm not able to recall exactly which will fit into this framework.
Hmm. No issues. We'll love to move on and we would love to see that what other ideas we can make up. Yes, this is what this article was all talking about. For example, it is saying riots are often counterproductive in 18th century England. According to Thompson, terrified farmers decide not to bring their crops to market. These things have happened not in India. In India, we have seen even in the extreme conditions, farmers have not resorted to any kind of negative sentiment. They have always tried to go by the logic of satyagraha, though different attributes have been given to it. So I would say that as far as India is concerned, it is an amazing, but at the same time, a thriving democracy where we have to see the positive ideals and where we have to see that how government and the common person, if they move on forward, then we are going to have a great reward as far as many goals of sustainable development is concerned. Can you move on to the next theme, please?
जी sir.
So the Paris could change how cities host the Olympics for good. We have to agree that till 1980s or even first decade of the 20th 21st century, it was seen as a kind of a great miracle, and it was seen as a kind of a great moral boosting in terms of international standing, in terms of even GDP, and even in terms of geopolitics, that if you're hosting uh, Olympics. But now things have changed. As we have seen, not every country, not every, even those countries, those who have been hosting the same, they have sometime pulled out. We have seen this for the Asian Games, we have seen this for Commonwealth Games, we have seen this for other games. So same thing is with the Paris. So the game will test the success of new solutions. So solutions, new solutions means those public solutions. New solutions means when you host a world to your doorstep, then there must be sustainable feature because it is going to cost environment, it is going to cost infrastructure, it is going to cost local economy, it is going to cost so many things. Like the World Cup was hosted by Qatar, so Qatar went on to create infrastructure, Qatar went on to create a kind of an environment. Later on, it was believed that much of the infrastructure was dismantled and many were supposed to be used again. So from that perspective, Olympic for good, that is what we have to see, because there are magnificent grounds of Versailles and volleyballs and then Eiffel Tower, and then you have seen river. We have seen just in the recently concluded, security is tight, and the geopolitical tensions are always there. Restaurant and business in these areas are emptier than normal bookings. And what we can say that how these things can make things more better, because as our star athlete and legendary gentleman Neeraj Chopra also said that sports always unite. Sports always bring those kind of feelings together where humanity comes first. So this is the same kind of element. So French capital first held the Olympics back then 3000 at least, representing 44 countries, and it competed in 126 medal events. This time it will have 10,500 at least from 206 countries and 329 medal events. You can see. So 9 million tickets have been sold. It's a record. Again, I'm repeating, 10,500 only athletes are there. So you can think how many people are going to visit the place, the resonance, and then 329 medals are there. 9 million tickets have been sold. So the approach to game vast investment is there. Metro network, like India is also speaking about that in 2036, we are also ready. But the question arises, do cities benefit from holding these games? Mansi, what do you say? We can move forward.
So when we talk about the past experience of different countries, so we are seeing that the infrastructure that is created and which requires heavy investments, so that is not later up used at that particular scale. So maintenance of that infrastructure also requires additional cost in the future. So that
So
is
the
not.
question arises, first of all, the budget overshoots. Secondly, what we can say is that near term benefits are less and the long term losses are more.
Ji, sir.
So there are financial hurdles, more media interest is there, sponsorship is there, but then is it enough? Is it enough to motivate a country to go for it? Is it enough? So broadcast revenue is rising. That's true. Even we have discussed in our previous session how sports broadcasting and sports media rights and everything is changing. If you can recall, kindly revisit our the first lecture again, and you will be able to understand. So the French you can say market or the luxury goods items and so on, and then even the Paris organizing committee, it is believing that whether the team effort that what they are doing, is it really going to help it in making it economically sustainable, because the value proposition is not really appealing, but then still it is an amazing thing to do so. For example, Munich, as I just said, voters had decided that they rejected the proposal to host Winter Olympics in 2022, like Krakow and even St. Moritz, they also did so. So Beijing won, and you can say that Beijing Olympics obviously were there. So we have already discussed that, and even the Los Angeles Games are there for 2028. But the point is that whether it is a kind of a beneficial process for the country which is hosting, that is what we are talking. So there may be different aspects for a country like India. If it get to host, it's a moral booster, it's a great employment generation, ancillary activities, and it is going to help in motivating to create world-class infrastructure and so on. But what about the cost and the environmental damage? How it must be reduced? Mansi.
So we can firstly think about that, how we can focus more upon carbon sequestration, how we can focus upon reducing the carbon emissions when we are investing into creation of infrastructure or maintenance of certain facilities or availability of facilities. Like in this case, in Paris Olympics, we saw that the air conditioning services or air conditioners were not, the rooms were not.
Yeah, correct. I agree with you. Even renewable energy and all those things are promoted. So what do you think when India is going to host, for example, in 2036 or for that matter in 2040? because every 4 years, if I'm not wrong, Olympics is coming up. So, do you think India will be able to follow the same? And there will be Olympics without air conditioners, I should say. That's not feasible. That's not possible. We have to look for other ways. In India, it will not be feasible. I don't think so. It depends on which month you're taking up. Monsoons are not the right months, and maybe early winters and those months would be chosen up, and not the summers. It is impossible to hold games in that time. We had already conducted Commonwealth Games, but there were some kind of hurdles with respect to financial bungling and so on. So environmental issues. Can we move forward? This is very important. Then secondly, we have to see whether it is sustainable or not. And the question around participation attract particularly because there is intense scrutiny. For example, United Nations has got 193 member states, but there are others also. For example, Kosovo, Palestine, and even now, for example, geostrategic issues like Ukraine, and some kind of other issues may also come up. So these issues also have to be tackled by the host country, and on the top of it, it has to go it has to go smoothly. For example, Israel is in the news, and we know the kind of events that are going on. So these are some of the heated debated topics which must be taken into consideration. And then you know uh, America is, like, as we can read over here also, it is at loggerheads with WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency, for failing to act against Chinese swimmers and so on. So these things are very important, and they will be always remaining up. So it is very important to make sure that it's a balanced ground. But India had already hosted G20, and it was a great showcase of our abilities and of our leadership, and we were able to do tremendously, and we were able to do something of the same sort, like the way Western world portrayed itself always in the good light. So we will also be moving forward without any kind of embarrassment or shames or all those kind of guilty feeling which were linked with the colonies when countries like India, they got independence. So geopolitics, corruption, and sustainable development, and overhead cost, and local economy, these are some of the issues which are what we can say are important. But the most important thing, as the last line says, the Olympics are the last best place where we can come together as species. Now, this is the key takeaway. This is absolutely true. There are very few platforms where all of us can mingle, can smile, can move forward, and think about the best of each other. Can you move forward to the next article, please? How to ensure Africa is not left out by the AI revolution. So here I would like to say before and only that it is not about leaving AI Africa behind. First of all, we have to see that AI revolution is coming up in the developed world first. It requires intense amount of investment. It requires intense amount of resources, intense amount of technology. It is good for India that even in the Silicon Valley, so many Indians are involved in, including Mr. Khosla. He is there, who are pioneers in investing in artificial intelligence, and even with chat gpt he has invested. So it is good for countries like India, who are taking a step ahead, who are coming up with the revolutionary ideas. We already have the identity set up through Aadhaar, we already have UPI, so it is not a problem. We can go for the digital mega revolution, and we can have AI based basic diagnostic tools, AI based basic education tools, AI based basic things which are going to make sure traffic, basic law and order, without any kind of substitute for the real person or the real people. So we are not even saying that it is going to take up the jobs. We are only going to alter itself. So forget about Africa. Africa is not going to be left behind, because broadband access and other kind of resources, they will definitely be poured in. That will be done by the developed world. But the here question arises: Africa will have to fight for, first of all, more stability, more manufacturing rather than primary economy. So that is why mobile phone services and even coming up of internet services, India had been provided it through African Union. India is also providing through PSUs. Indian PSUs are also working, and they have been providing services in terms of AguSat, or in terms of even mobile services and so forth. That is why what we can say, it is the Western world's perspective that they would like to put in money for Africa, but only for their own benefit first. For example, Netherlands, they are giving example. Netherlands is having population of 18 million, has more of these than all of Africa, and it's 1.5 billion people. But again, I would say it's a wrong comparison, because Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, America, Britain, they all were colonists, including Italy. Dismemberment of Africa, which which you will be reading in the world history docs that we have been working upon, you will find that now the things can't be reversed the way they were done. So that is why it is very important. One has to come up again, same thing, same kind of concept which you speak about. It must be having differential responsibility for everyone, and then only we can say that in AI also it will not be leaving behind. Mansi, would you like to add something over here?
No, sir, nothing new.
Right infrastructure, but then India has been working for it. Along with the India is also providing a credit line. India is also providing certain kind of provisions in its even annual budget also. So India, as a great emerging power, in a right way, in a right moral way, and learning the ropes in one way of the high-handedness of the developed world. So we are not also going to get back. Can you move forward, please?
Yes,
So
sir.
I would like to add one point.
Tell me.
सर जैसे इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन के टाइम पे हमने देखा था कि जब 19th सेंचुरी में
Uh,
जापान
are
वाज
I don't think you're a Hindi medium student. Are you a Hindi medium student?
yes
Can you please clarify? Okay, Hindi
yes
medium. You
so
can speak in
during
Hindi.
the 19th century when the Japan was looking forward towards the industrialization, then the major role which was played by was from the skills and from the education which the students of Japan were getting from the universities of Europe or from the universities of US. So on the same lines, India can also provide educational programs to the African students,
We're
जिसमें
already
AI
doing it. We are already doing it, and in some certainly we are providing. But then first we have to take care of ourselves. We have to raise up to such level, and then definitely you will be doing so. Thank you very much. You call, please. How to build a global currency? So, Mansi, for the question arises, I want to ask you: do we need a global currency? Already we have dollar.
So definitely, if we have Indian rupee as a global currency, that is called again internationalization of rupee. So that will be having various benefits for India in economic sense also, or even terms of integration with the world and stability of the financial system. Because we are
I
seeing,
agree.
we can see that there is a kind of monopoly of the US dollar, and this can be even misused by the US also. So
It had been, arm twisting is already there. Already you have Bretton Woods institutions, IMF and World Bank. They are the Western centric institutions. Even we went on to have a new development bank and even other kind of institutions, but they have also not been able to fulfill all the aspirations and ideas with respect to India. Can we move forward, please? So when we talk about Indian rupee, so Indian rupee definitely, as you just said, it accounts for less than 2% of the international currency transactions, but we are trying. Economy is obviously growing. Indian Prime Minister is going to see that it is trying. Indian government is also trying that our rupee is more accessible. Our rupee is more stable and more confident, and that is how we can make sure that it is acting as a global currency because American dollar is the undisputed king of currency. That is right. British pound, euro, Swiss franc, dollars of Australia, Canada, Hong Kong, and Singapore all are examples. So these currencies are founding themselves in foreign reserves and private portfolios worldwide. India is also having masala bonds for that matter, but that's a different thing. We also see that for trade and financial transactions they are there, but in theory, it is the question arises here. There is no reason why the rupee should not join the illustrious group, but then it takes time because the overseas investors more is the capitalization, more is the market economy growing, more is the formalization. When the capital markets they function more transparently, they are more robust, they are, and even there is more involvement by the people. Then only these things go for. So the foundation stones of international currency is being laid down. That's what we are saying, and it is increasingly a unit of account and medium of exchange, as we already know. With the certain countries, we have currency swap. Also, India already made first rupee payment for oil, like the question is saying Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. It's a very important fact. You can always quote it also. And China already with yuan, they have always spelled it the same way, and it went on to become one of the currencies which is part of that system also. What is that system called, Mansi?
so SWIFT system.
Swift, no, I'm saying that those rights, though that is not a currency with respect to where you have five currencies are there, a basket is there of currencies.
So SDR, IMF's
SDR,
SDR.
I am SDR, correct. So China, we can learn from China. It is saying 70% of global GDP it is having. More than 80% of international yuan transactions occur in Hong Kong. China is a relatively closed capital account, which prevents investment from flowing freely across the board. It's a very, very important point. And it's the main obstacle to wide use of currency. That is why in China, what we see in China, property is the main transaction. People invest in property. One home, two home, three houses, four houses. The bubble is there, and it is slowing down, and even it is the financial lucrativeness of it is also evaporating. Japan is also another example it is showing. Japan is giving another example in 1970s, 7% of global GDP, more than 4% right now. And that's how yen. Like when I went to Japan, I could also see that 100 yens, you can't buy anything in 100 yens. And 100 yen is something like our 25 paisa. At that time, I'm talking about 20 years back. So after that, things have not changed much for Japan. There have been, change in the foreign exchange, but then it is very costly. Tokyo itself is Tokyo is one of the world's most costliest cities. For one sandwich or one burger, in fact, it will go for say around too much price. I would say I would not like to quote it away. So that is why global currency status we are going to make for. So Mansi, what three things and which committees do you think are there, or what we should do to make sure the process goes on? That is internationalization of Indian rupee. And do you think digital currency is going to help over here? And then we can move forward.
So digital currency can definitely help, as it will increase the ease of payments and the flexibility options, and will not have to keep the money, the physical money with ourselves. So that is one thing, and it can be, again, it is more transparent when we talk about the transactions. So black money transactions can also be covered with the help of it. Then what else can we do to internationalize the rupee? As we are seeing that in case of India, we are promoting, for example, the Indian and rupee ruble trade with Russia. But there also we are seeing the problem, because then what is Russia going to do with the Indian rupee? That is the problem area. So in this case, we can talk about increasing the acceptability of Indian rupee. And for that, we have to focus more upon the stability of our exchange rate. So that can be one of the things through which we can
So that
increase
is why India,
and
yes, I agree with you. India is also going to do the same thing. India is also going to bring reforms. We are already working. There was Tarapur Committee for capital account convertibility. You can read more about it when you Google, or you can just look into any notes. So I agree that things are going to change for India also, and we can keep these points in mind when we are talking about these topics. Can you move forward, please? So one last quick roundabout with the fact how India could become an Asian tiger. How India could become an Asian. So my question to you, Mansi, is: do you really think that India is not an Asian tiger? Can you move forward?
So we can say that India definitely is emerging like an Asian tiger, because we are having major competition from China.
Mhm.
So in that case, we are working upon, like, we are an important regional power in Asia, and even when we're talking about the Indo-Pacific region. So we are like the natural geographical location of India is
So do you agree? Do you agree if someone says that India is lacking state capacity?
no, sir. I will not agree with this, because as we say that India is well capitalized economy, and we are also maintaining financial stability. Our economic momentum, growth momentum is also strong. So I
Move
would.
forward, move forward. Yeah, good. So what do you say when we say with respect to with respect to health and the education infrastructure in India? What is your critical take?
So as we are focusing upon, firstly, both for education and healthcare, that we need to increase the budget allocation for both these areas in terms of the percentage of GDP that is currently allocated. So for education, it needs to be 6% of the GDP, and for healthcare, it should be close to 3% of the GDP. And we are working upon the grassroots level. In specifically in healthcare, we're focusing upon the availability, accessibility, and affordability, and universal healthcare system facilities. And in that case, like for example, we have Pradhan Mantri Jai Yojana, Jan Arogya Yojana. So health insurance is also important. So there also, particularly, like we can also talk about the preventive healthcare, palliative healthcare, and curative healthcare, and then
So yes,
the
you
geriatric
can
health.
move forward. You can move forward, and what we can say is that uh, हम ये नहीं कहेंगे if I say in Hindi that our position is getting poorer or we are in global है hunger index में हम नीचे हैं HDI में हम नीचे हैं हमें ये नहीं देखना है हमें ये देखना है the kind of human resources do we have kind of population that we do have kind of huge task that we are supposed to do it's a long way to go for us. Definitely, how state, that government of India is actually interacting with people, that is very amazing to see. Technology is being used, federal system, we have the federal government, we have the federal wage. हमारे पास world का what we can say is world's highest rail bridge we have on the Chenab River. We are working on the infrastructure. We are working on so many other ideas. So that is why we can say it is very beautifully done, and we are moving forward to it. So we believe in the fact that, critically seen, with the changes in bureaucracy also, India will definitely be not only just Asian tiger but a global giant very soon. So thank you very much to all of you, and look into the critical points, make your own notes, go back to your drawing board and work smart and hard. With us, you can always get success. Wishing all of you all the best.